We have all been there. You download a new app, you're super excited to get started, and then boom, you hit a massive wall of text, a tiny checkbox, and that big, shiny I agree button. But what are we really agreeing to? Come on, be honest. If you're like pretty much everyone else, it was probably this morning. We just click it. We don't even think twice. But that one little click, it's a legally binding contract. And in this explainer, we're going to pull back the curtain and see what's actually hiding in all that fine print. Okay, so here's our game plan. We're going to start with why these terms matter in the first place. Then we'll dive right into the fine print and unpack all that legal jargon. After that, we'll talk about your digital rights. And finally, we'll wrap it all up with how you can be a smarter, more empowered user. Right, first things first, you've got to understand the terms of use, or sometimes they're called terms of service. They aren't just a silly little formality. Nope, they are the actual foundation of the relationship between you and whatever service you're using. So here's the thing. A well-written agreement is actually designed to do three really important things. First, it protects your rights as a user. Like your right to privacy or getting a refund if something goes wrong. Second, it's supposed to ensure transparency, so you know what you're getting into. And third, it provides legal protection for both you and the company. All right, let's get into the good stuff. This is where we break down the most common clauses that you are going to find in almost every single terms of use document. And don't worry, I promise, we'll make this super simple. These long documents are almost always broken down into specific sections, and each one covers a different piece of your agreement. They lay out everything from what you have to do to what the company is and isn't responsible for. Let's tackle the most important ones. First up, user obligations. This is basically the rulebook for using the service. It tells you what you, the user, have to do, or more often, what you can't do. It's also where they might sneak in rules about who actually owns the content you create on their platform. For example, a ride-sharing app's terms will say you have to give them a valid phone number and that you can't use their service for, illegal package deliveries. It seems obvious, but it's an absolutely essential part of the deal. Okay, next is a really big one, limitation of liability. This clause is where the company spells out exactly how much, or more likely how little, they're on the hook for if their service messes up and causes you a problem. A little pro tip here, watch out for phrases like, to the fullest extent permitted by law. That's basically code for we're trying to be responsible for as little as we can legally get away with. Think about your online banking app for a second. If the service crashes for an hour and you miss an important transfer, this is the clause that will probably protect the bank from you suing them for any money you lost. That's why it's so important to know where their responsibility ends and yours begins. Now, this might just be the single most important clause today. Privacy and data use. It's supposed to tell you exactly what personal information they're collecting from you, why they're collecting it, and what they're doing with it. You want to look for details on how long they keep your data and if they share it with so-called third party. So let's take a food delivery service. The terms will cover your rights if your order is late or wrong, but tucked away in that same document is the privacy policy. And it has to be just as clear about what happens to your personal data. Your name, your address, everything you've ever ordered. They're just sides of the same coin you agree to. It's not just about your data. Companies also use these terms to protect their own stuff. The intellectual property clause is all about them protecting their logo, their software, their articles, their cool design, everything that makes them them. A perfect example is any news website. Their terms will clearly state that you can read their articles, of course, but you can't just copy and paste them and then go publish them as your own. You're basically agreeing not to steal their work. And finally, there's the termination of service clause. This is the one that gives the company the right to kick you out. You really want to be aware of language like at our sole discretion, because that can give them a whole lot of power to remove you, sometimes with no warning at all. We see this play out all the time on social media, right? If a user violates the community guidelines by posting hate speech or spreading misinformation, the platform can use this clause to suspend or even permanently ban their account. It's their right to do so, and it's something you agreed to when you signed up. Okay, so we've talked a lot about the company's rules and how they protect themselves. But what about you? What about your rights? Well, the good news is that these documents are also supposed to outline and protect your rights as a digital citizen. See, this isn't a one-way street. Thanks to data protection laws around the world, like Pakistan's Personal Data Protection Bill, companies are legally required to respect your fundamental rights, and they have to spell that out clearly in their terms. It is so important to know what you're entitled to. These are not just nice suggestions, they're real, actionable rights. The right to withdraw consent means you can literally tell a company to stop using your data for marketing. The right to access means you can ask for every single piece of data they have on you. And the right to deletion, that's your right to be forgotten. These are incredibly powerful tools for controlling your own digital life. So, after all of that, what's the big takeaway? How can you actually use this information to protect yourself and just be a more conscious person online? Let's do a quick recap. Okay, here's your new game plan. First, always remember, you are signing a contract. Second, if you're only going to skim, use Control F on your keyboard to search for those keywords: privacy, liability, termination. It's a super fast way to find the most critical parts. Third, know your rights. You have power here. Don't forget that you can request, correct, and delete your data. And finally, whenever an app updates and asks you to agree to new terms, pause for a minute. That's when the big changes to data use or liability often get slipped. So, I'll just leave you with this question to think about. That little checkbox is our gateway to all the digital services we love, for sure. But it's also a statement of your rights and your responsibilities. And being aware of that isn't just smart, it's empowering.